Good early afternoon, everyone. How are you? Good. Thumbs up. Well, let me be the first to welcome you to all of our esteemed guests, media, press, colleagues, influencers, doctors. We're very excited to have you here today. Did everyone get their golden ratio key card? If you have, hold that up for me. I just want to see that you have that. Have you tried this out on each other yet to see how you measure up? I'm looking at a couple of people right now. I see a lot of beautiful faces here. If you're not sure what this is about, you're going to find out very shortly. And I promise you'll see and understand a bit more about why we have this for you. But we are very excited to have you here today. Basically, this afternoon, we'll be sharing with you about the first ever medical guidelines in Asia on achieving a well-proportioned face and unveiling for you our very own Singapore representative in the most proportionate face from a 3-month-long search. So Merz Aesthetics has always been at the forefront of the aesthetics industry and trying to find ways to bring science to life. I mean, let's be honest, sometimes aesthetics can be a bit daunting, and they're always very concerned about how do I bring the science of aesthetics to life, to your life, to my life. So we're going to talk about the forethought that they had when they set out more than 2 years ago to come up with a consensus on what the most proportionate face for Asia would be. So basically 2 years ago, they brought together experts from several different countries all across Asia to come up with this consensus paper that would determine what sets an Asian face, what makes it proportionally beautiful compared to the Caucasian guidelines, which have been around for some time. Because the fact is that the Caucasian standard of beauty and proportion is different than the Asian standard for beauty and proportion. So because they foresaw this need, they set out to come up with a consensus and recently had this consensus paper that was agreed upon published in a very esteemed medical journal. So in order to try to bring that science to life, they set out about 3 months ago on a search to find the most proportionate face across 10 Asian countries. And these 10 representatives were recently revealed on November the 9th of this year in Bangkok. Countries Hong Kong, India, Indonesia, Korea, Malaysia, the Philippines, Singapore, Taiwan, Thailand, and Vietnam were all represented. So I know that if you have an interest in beauty, if you have questions about aesthetics, that you guys are all excited to hear what we're going to share with you today. So I'd like to go ahead and invite Raymond Ong, the Regional Commercial Director and Head of Marketing for Merz Asia Pacific, to the stage. Raymond, join us. Big round of applause, please, for Raymond Ong.
Thank you, Ren. Good morning and welcome. Thank you for joining us for this event. I want to take a moment to share with you a little bit about Merz. Merz was founded by Mr. Frederick Merz in 1908. It's privately held for over 100 years, headquartered in Germany. And we have a portfolio of aesthetic products available to over 100 countries worldwide. And in Asia, we have offices in 12 countries which make these products available. And just to give you a snapshot of our portfolio globally, we started out Merz Aesthetics. Merz as a company, we have, of course, division, which is Merz Aesthetics, started out in 2005 with Bellatero, hyaluronic acid filler. And in 2009, we launched Xeomin. Xeomin is a botulinum toxin, free from complexing protein, and it's in-house developed in Merz. So that's been launched in Europe and also available in Asia Pacific, including Singapore. In 2010, we brought on Radius, a calcium filler, which adds on to our filler range in Europe and also in Asia Pacific. In 2009, interestingly, we had our first office in Asia Pacific. And we have offices at the time in Singapore, Korea, and Taiwan. But now we have offices in 12 countries, as shared. In 2011, Merz is being dedicated and continually supporting our physicians, our doctors. We organize an international training forum, the Expert Summit, and this involves global thought leaders and also global doctors, including Asian doctors. And in 2013, we acquired another company, Neocotis, and that's actually cosmetic products that's available in the US, dermal cosmetic products. In 2014, we made an acquisition. We actually brought Altherapy into our fold. It's the only US FDA cleared ultrasound device for skin tightening and skin lifting. And that comes with visualization to assist doctors or at least support doctors in a more precise and targeted treatment, which helps patients. And in 2016, as part of supporting doctors with evidence-based medicine training and such, we set up the Merz Institute, where we continue to provide evidence-based medicine and, of course, training to physicians, and it's available online to doctors. In 2016, we launched Selfina, which is a device and treatment for cellulite. And hopefully, in the near future, we're going to bring that treatment also to Singapore and Asia Pacific. In 2017, we're glad to share that we've launched the Pan-Asian Consensus, which my colleague Dr. Owen will share with you a little bit more. So I'm going to tell you a little bit about the Golden Ratio search. And the search was under the banner of Merz Aesthetic Advancement of Techniques, MET for short, and the search aims to bring the science, the Pan-Asian Consensus, that Ran has shared, that we've launched at the international conference in Bangkok just last month. We want to bring that Pan-Asian Consensus, the guidelines, to life, to bring relatable information to consumers, especially females. And that is the part of the search that went on for the past 3 months. And in the next slide, you'll see that we've launched the Pan-Asian Consensus at the ISDS, the International Society of Dermatology Surgery Conference. And that's where 3 months before we started a search for well-proportioned females. And that has been run in 10 countries, Asia Pacific wide. And we had more than 3,000 submissions. And from there, we identified a representative from each country. And as Ran has shared, the 10 countries have females who are very well proportioned in terms of their facial features and such. And today you'll also see the Singapore representative, and we'll share more with regards to how proportioned her face is. And you can compare that with yourself. I'm sure you're interested with doing that. So with that, I'd like to pass it over to Ran to share more. So,
great.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raymond. Another round of applause for Raymond Dong. So Merz has been around a long time. They've always tried to find, like as we've mentioned many times today, a way to bring science to life. So it is my pleasure to invite Owen Sunga, who is the Regional Medical Director for Merz Asia Pacific. Dr. Owen, why don't you join us on stage? A big round of applause, please, for Dr. Owen. This is where you learn what the Golden Ratio is all about. So Dr. Owen, take it away.
Thank you, Ray. Thank you, Ray. Okay, so let me just give you a brief description of what the paper was and more into the specifics on the criteria that we came about into coming into this search. So basically, this is, as mentioned already from the beginning, it's the first medical guideline on achieving well-proportioned faces in Asian. It's the first publication that has been released in Asia supporting the combination of treatments in achieving a well-proportioned face. And not to mention that it also goes into strategies in modifying an ideal shape and specific on areas of enhancement, restoration, and beautification across an Asian face. So we did also mention just now that current guidelines on the application of combination treatment focus predominantly in a Caucasian face. So that's the reason why this paper came about, because we realized that there is a need among Asia Pacific, in particular in treating a specific Asian with this respect. Few such guidelines are available for Asian patients, and in particular on combination treatment strategies available are very specific among Caucasian, and this led into the development of the paper. So there were 10 Asian doctors across Asia Pacific, plus 4 international speakers across Germany, US, who actually went over into coming up with this particular protocol in achieving an ideal facial proportion. In Asia, patient also seeks aesthetic intervention at a younger age. And their requests therefore focus on early intervention, enhancement, and beautification. And in comparison with Caucasian patients typically seek restorative interventions, more for the aging conditions. And hence, this is where the dilemma is. That's why when we thought of the paper and we came about into this publication, we realized that the need for adapting treatment recommendations that are currently non-Asian specific are important. Hence, the paper has been published in the Journal of Clinical and Aesthetic Dermatology and was launched in ISDS in Bangkok 2 weeks ago, this month. So looking into the criteria on how we actually evaluated the 10 well-proportioned faces in Asia, we look into 3 specific categories or parameter. The first one is the golden ratio, which is defined as specific line that actually measures the facial height to width ratio. And this is one of the parameters that has been used to evaluate these candidates or representatives. Another important parameter that we actually use in the identification of our representatives is the horizontal facial proportions. This is the upper third, middle third, and the lower third. From the forehead to the eyebrow to the nasal base or to the base of the nose and to the chin. And we also look into the specifics of facial symmetry, the equal halves, the right and the left. Not to mention that there are also specific considerations with regards to facial profile, such as the E-line or the aesthetic line and the nasal projection. And to complete all these specific criteria, we also did identify the Auger curve. This is a nicely flow of concave into the convex, or also known as the fluid S shape, which brings about the structure of the face overall, anterior projection, side projection, and the symmetries overall. And of course, we do not forget the jaw definition, or definition of the jaw, which completes the specific the criteria that we did use in evaluating these Asian women. In fact, in 2012, there was this Britain event known as the Britain's Perfect Face that was recognizing Florence Colgate as one of their ideals, and actually did use all the suggested criteria that we did use for our Asia Pacific golden ratio search. So this is a mathematical representation and definition of beauty in terms of relevant measurements as discussed in the Pan-Asian Consensus. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Owen. Another round of applause. So, gives you some interesting information on the connection of science and mathematics. I'm going to just chase Dr. Owen here since he has my script. No worries.
Sorry.
This is where you have to know how much you memorize and how much you don't. But along with that, we've mentioned before how Merz set about 3 months ago to find the most proportionate faces across 10 Asian countries. And in that search, participants met with a panel of doctors who not only interviewed them, did proportional measuring, had a chance to see them face to face. And basically, over those 3 months, with a combination of those panelists, as well as live Facebook voting, every country was able to have a representative for their country. And so we are very pleased today to have our Singapore representative with us. I'm going to invite Nisha Hiomi to join me on stage. If you could give her a big round of applause. This is Singapore's most proportionate face. Hi, Nisha. How are you? Good. So glad to have you here, and congratulations on being the most proportionate face in all of Singapore. So obviously, my first question is, why did you decide to submit yourself for this opportunity?
To be honest, it was my friend who told me about the golden ratio search, and she said that I get a free Sephora voucher if I just participate. So like a true Singaporean, I did. I didn't expect to be selected, but I'm glad it all happened so swiftly, and I'm honored and excited to be representing Singapore.
That's fantastic. I think we would all do that for a Sephora gift voucher, right? So we probably would submit. But no, that's actually a great honor, and congratulations again. I'm just curious what your thoughts are on how you feel like the guidelines that have come out of this consensus paper and of this search will help an average Singaporean.
I guess now that we understand what the golden ratio is and what it means to have a well-proportioned face, especially in a multiracial city like Singapore, it helps us to, this medical guideline would help us to appreciate our differences while feeling confident and good about how we look.
Okay, fantastic. So in order to discuss a little bit further about what makes Nisha's proportions within the golden ratio and why she was chosen for Singapore, I'm going to go ahead and invite Dr. Joyce Lim to join me on stage. And Dr. Joyce is going to share with us some of the criteria and how Nisha fits within that. So a big round of applause for Dr. Joyce, please. So Joyce, good to see you.
If you look at Nisha right now, you can see that she's quite well proportioned. You agree? But let's see whether we can prove it more scientifically by just measuring her. So you have heard about the golden ratio is 1:1.618. Now if I were to measure her length and her width, we'll find that it's 1.618, so we won't do that. The other thing is that we have divided the face into 3/3, so it's 1/3 here, 1/3 here, and 1/3 here. Let's see whether she's really proportionate. All right, so this is a golden caliper. Now, if I have this length, this will be 1.618. All right, so I'm going to use this to measure her upper third, which is here, her middle third, which is perfect, and the lower third, which is also perfect. So she has perfect proportions. The other thing we can measure is the width, and we divide the face into five sections. So by measuring the intercanthal line, which is just here, this is the distance that is always fixed. No matter how old you get or how your face changes, this will never change. So if we are dividing into fifths, this distance will be equal to this distance. Let me just get it properly. All right, so this is 1/5, the second fifth, and the third. All right, so again, vertically, she is also well proportioned. Let's look at her in the profile. Okay. So when you look at her in the profile, you can see that, I can see it backwards here. This is a very nice curve, all right? And you can see that she has very nice, what we call the OG curve. Then let's look at the E line. So again, it's perfect. So you can see they're all aligned, all right? The last thing I'm going to measure is her forehead. So so again, here is 1, and you can see that it's 1.618. Again, perfect proportion. So she's indeed a very well-proportioned face.
Thank you, Dr. Joyce. So that's actually very interesting. So Nisha, how do you feel being like measured and poked and prodded like an animal today? You're a great sport. I'd like to go ahead and invite a couple of our other panelists on stage and to talk more about aesthetics and more about this topic of proportion. So I'd like to invite back Dr. Onsunga and also Dr. Wong, if he would join us on a stage as well. Let's have a little sit down and have some conversation here about proportion and beauty, especially in the Asian sense, and the way that science and beauty and art all kind of intertwine. So give that for you. So panelists, thank you so much for being here. We're very excited to have you here to kind of hear your thoughts. And so, Dr. Wong, what is the most common Singaporean facial shape, and how do shapes differ by race at all?
Thank you for inviting me to share my experience here with you. The primary determinant of facial shape is the facial skeleton. And of course, the facial skeleton of the male patient is different from the female patients. For Singaporean patients, the commonest shape for a female patient is the oval shape and the diamond shape. For male, it is more the rectangular shape as the most common, followed by the oval shape. Of note, the shape changes profoundly as patient ages. With aging, there is loss of volume, deflation of the face, as well as sagging. And both in males and females, the shape assume a more squarish or rectangular shape. In terms of differences in from say Asian patients from Caucasian patients, we know instinctively that there are profound differences between faces of the Caucasian and Asian patients, with the Asians being wider, broader, as well as less projected in the central face, especially the nose area.
Very interesting. So let me follow up with you, Dr. Sunggo, on another question. There was an article by the Daily Mail that named George Clooney as the most handsome man on the planet. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on this, and I don't know how our audience, if they would agree with this or not. Probably, I don't know if I should take a vote, probably not. But I'm just curious what your thoughts are on him being named the most handsome man.
Well, again, as mentioned, the golden ratio, or in particular the facial symmetry and proportions, is very variable in terms of cultural and ethnicity considerations. And in fact, if you will ask me to give an example of a proportioned face, like a celebrity in Asia, I would say Fan Bingbing would be an example to consider. So this cuts across. So Caucasian and Asian has specific considerations and definitions of proportions and beauty. So it may not be similar, and there will be considered variations. Yeah.
I think that's been one of the bigger disconnects, is that we equate beauty, which is very subjective, with proportion, which is very scientific and mathematically based. Yeah. And so that's very interesting, actually. And to follow on that, Dr. Wong, what are the most common treatments to help us achieve the golden ratio proportions in our own faces?
We have many very effective aesthetic treatments now available to help achieve the ratio. These, of course, will be best used in combination. For example, botulinum toxins such as the zeomin may be used in the lower face to relax the muscle, the masseter, and that would help to slim your lower face, achieving a more oval or diamond shape. And then in the upper part of the face, to increase projection of the face, fillers may be used to project the forehead, the nose, the cheeks, as well as the chin. And of course, skin tightening procedures such as the therapy is good to firm the skin. As discussed, as you age, the skin starts to sag, assuming a more squarish face shape. And with the firming technology, the Altera, you can firm the skin a bit to restore the contour of youth, which is the oval shape that you have when you were younger. So these modalities used in combination is very effective in achieving a more ideal shape, either in restoring the contour of youth or in achieving a better shape than you are naturally born with.
Okay. So, Dr. Joyce, following up on that as well, one of the things that the Pan-Asian consensus paper determined was that beautification is a more common focus in Asian patients as opposed to Caucasian patients. Can you kind of comment on this and why the difference?
Yes, Asians tend to come in for beautification as opposed to Caucasians who come in for corrective treatment. And there are many reasons for this. One, of course, is the facial shape. If you look around at your neighbors or around the room, you find that we tend to be very broad on the face. And you remember that we said that the length and the width ratio should be 1:1.618. But unfortunately, our length is a little bit shorter. So that makes our whole face rounder or even more squarish. If you look profile, you find that we have very poor developed center part, and therefore the face tends to be like protruded inside, so we have a very flat face. So because of this, people want to have a more oval face, and therefore they come in for beautification. For the older or more mature patients, as one grows older, Asians have thicker skin. And therefore, because of the thicker skin, they tend to sag, which makes the lower parts of the face more heavy. And therefore, again, they come in for beautification. And of course, for the younger ones, there's this K-pop culture that they have expired to. So they want to follow the idols, and therefore they go for a more oval shape. Because if you look around, you find that the so-called Korean actors or actresses, they all have an oval face.
Interesting. One of the things that the Pan-Asian consensus paper came up with was that oval is the most ideal face shape. Do most Asians have the oval face shape, Dr. Sunga?
Well, first and foremost, it was also our interest to know whether we have quite in terms of that, because among the 5 shapes, and out of the 3,000 submissions in this particular search, we found that about 60 to 65%, which is very high, across the 10 Asian countries, do have an oval face. But of course, along with that, as I've said, there are also considerations in terms of ethnicities and the border differentiation, and in terms of looking into how challenging for us to have that ideal oval face. I think the Pan-Asian Consensus, the recently published medical paper, has given a very robust treatment platform for most physicians to look into and then evaluate their patients accordingly, whether it fits into these treatment protocols. And of course, not to mention that the most important and critical thing is consult your aesthetic practitioner or your provider to give the best, I would say, assessment and qualitative and specific treatment strategy for you. Yeah.
So, Dr. Joyce, you mentioned K-pop culture, and the oval face being ideal, and some of the cultural drivers for this trend in beautification focus. And Dr. Wong, I'm just curious, as you look ahead in aesthetics, especially looking at minimally invasive techniques, et cetera, what do you see on the horizon? What do you see globally and in Singapore being the next trend in aesthetics?
Yeah, Singapore is a very sophisticated market, and patients nowadays, they want a few things. They want a very natural result. They want a quick recovery, as well as they want the treatments to be safe. When we treat patients, the products have to deliver a very natural and long-lasting result that will enhance the patient in such a way that it would be in harmony with the rest of the facial features of the patient, and so that they don't look operated but just look beautiful for the particular patient's ethnicity. Patients nowadays are very busy, so they want a quick recovery. So this minimally invasive treatment is good because the recovery and is quick, and downtime can be minimized. And finally, patients are doing a lot of research on the internet. So whatever products that we give patients, they've probably read about it in terms of safety and data available to support its use. So we use good quality products that have a lot of data behind it in terms of safety as well as longevity of the result.
That's actually very interesting. Thank you so much for sharing that. So, panelists, again, I want to thank you for sitting down with us and talking a little bit about aesthetics and about the golden ratio. Dr. Joyce, Dr. Wong, Dr. Owen, and Nisha, of course, thank you guys so much for being up here. Again, another round of applause for our panelists and for our Singapore representative. Thank you so much. Wow, that was a nice long extended clap there. So, as we come to a close, we don't want to leave without sharing some big news, a big announcement that Merz has been working very hard on, and they want to share with you. Because again, their interest is so much in trying to bring questions about aesthetics and about beauty and self-confidence and those kind of things, and to make them easily accessible. I want to invite Raymond Ong back up to share some exciting news with you. So Raymond, why don't you come share with us the news that you have?
Thank you. So a quick announcement. I want to share a little bit about the background. Merz recently commissioned a consumer survey to understand consumers, women, in terms of how they look for information when they want aesthetic treatments or about beauty. So we found that most consumers in Asia Pacific, including Singapore, they go to the digital platform, websites, Facebook, Instagram, etc., find out from friends, and also want information that's accurate. So feedback they receive, they're interested to receive medical information, aesthetic treatments and such, and we're unable to find reliable information. It's a lot of hearsay, what do you do, what do I do, and such. So Merz recognized the need, and we want to bridge that gap, and by providing, of course, accurate evidence-based medicine to consumers and make it relatable. So as such, we are going to launch our digital platform in the website and Facebook, and in the future have consultants like Dr. Wong and Dr. Lim to answer questions that consumers, especially females, have, so that some of these information can be shared accurately, at least from a medical aesthetic physician's perspective. And with that, we hope to encourage with the consensus, Pan-Asian consensus, and also information that you will bring to consumers, especially females, bringing the science to life, to include more aesthetic physicians on the platform to answer questions that consumers have. So that's coming in the near future. And as such, we want to also thank our doctors, Dr. Wong, Dr. Lim, who's been so gracious in helping us as we develop and share this information, evidence-based medicine, and also more aesthetic information to consumers, the hungry consumers and females that we have about aesthetic treatments and such. So appreciate your attendance, and I'll pass it over to Ren.
And Raymond, this is the first of its kind that we know of in all of Asia, isn't that correct?
Yes, that's what we understand. We think that there's no platform now available that doctors answer questions specifically. So that's something that we want to explore further and make it available to consumers.
Fantastic. Big round of applause for that. That's actually big news. If you actually remember this website, if you go on there, the site is live right now. You can go on there. It shows Dr. Lim's picture, Dr. Wong's picture. You can type in your question, your contact details, and you send it off. And so it's a very easy platform to use. It's actually very exciting to have a platform like this to, again, make questions about beauty and aesthetics more accessible to you and I. So again, I want to thank all of you for being here today. I want to thank again our panelists, the doctors for being here, our guest speakers, and all of you. We wanted to be able to share this opportunity, this information and opportunity with you first, to introduce you to our Singaporean winner, Nisha. And so I'm going to ask right now, before we dismiss for some fun things, if our panelists and Nisha, if I can invite you guys outside to the photo wall. There's someone there waiting to take a photograph of you guys, so I'll go ahead and let you guys go that way now. For the rest of you, let me kind of share what's going to be happening from this point forward. We're going to go ahead and dismiss to the inspiration room, which is right across the foyer, where we have a lovely buffet lunch set up for you. Along the way, you'll see a huge flower bar. The purpose of that is basically twofold. One, the golden ratio is all about finding beauty in nature. And so that's an opportunity for you to see and even play with your little rulers and check out how the different flowers look. But also, as you get ready to leave today, we want to give you an opportunity to build your own bouquet of flowers that you can take away with you today. So there's probably about 40 different types of flowers out there, either on the way to lunch or after you enjoy your meal. Come out, go to that, create your own bouquet, and take that with you as kind of a memorial of this event today. So again, thank you so much for your attention. I know that Nisha and the doctors and the panelists will be available to answer any other questions that you might have. If you have just some things you want to ask kind of offline, if you want more information on aesthetics and about Merz in particular. I also know that all of you have received your press material, so you'll see in there the products that are readily available now in Asia Pacific. And so we are just excited that you're here again. So with that being said, let's be dismissed and go have some lunch. So thank you again.